Clarity breeds confidence, commitment, momentum, clarity of purpose, clarity of strategy, clarity of roles and responsibility. Here's the deal though, the lack of clarity within organizations, and whether you're talking insurance companies or otherwise, lack of clarity was the major driver to frustration and dissatisfaction and the barrier to productivity in a workforce.
So we have C-suite disconnected with the workforce in the vast majority of all industries. Here, it's no difference in the insurance world. I can't speak to whether or not that's true at the carrier that I represent because I'm not sure and I wouldn't want to comment on that, of course.
Sure.
However, that can be the case maybe with many other carriers. So
Sure.
If that's the case, how do we move it back to an alignment? Because what we also see is in the efforts of, especially in the captive world, in the efforts of them to promote growth, they also limit the ability of the agent to do things because of the very technology that's out there that they're getting beaten by. How do you handle that disconnect if the C-suite thinks we need to do it this way, but this way is Blockbuster, and over here is Netflix, but we can't use it?
You know, we wanted to figure that out too, right? But we wanted to figure out with authenticity and prove it to ourselves. And we, at Bastion Transform, we put out a massive survey, and it was for all employees of all types, of all shapes and sizes and services, and was all about, what do you think about your leadership? What do you think about your role? What's your communication with your leadership? Do you feel you have value in your organization as an insurance company? All these different aspects, all these different questions. And what came back, guys, was staggering. And it boiled down to basically 3 sections. It was clarity that they lacked as far as the workforce between what they think they're doing and what the leadership thinks they're doing. It was empowerment, their ability to actually do what their leadership is saying they want them to do. And lastly, mindset. And when you break those 3 things down, which is whether it's Bastion Transform that's gonna do that for an organization, or the organization's gonna hire in-house people to do it or outside consultants to do it, they can either do it or they can play the ostrich and ignore it, but it's not going away in a digital era. Especially when you've had your workforce that has spent 2 years with a homework assignment in confinement, really trying to understand what's in their head and what's in their heart, what's most important to them. When they're spending arguably more hours at work than they are with their own family, what are they willing to sacrifice and what are they not willing any longer to sacrifice? So when we looked at all the questions and all the answers and all the feedback, it really boiled down to an organization, if they've got clarity, everyone is very clear on what the focus is of the business and what they're doing. Secondly, empowerment to the employees. And lastly, mindset, they thrive. Clarity, not to sound trite, but it's the need to feel engaged. Clarity breeds confidence, commitment, momentum, clarity of purpose, clarity of strategy, clarity of roles and responsibility. Here's the deal though, the lack of clarity within organizations, and whether you're talking insurance companies or otherwise, I'm talking most service-oriented type businesses. Lack of clarity was the major driver to frustration and dissatisfaction and the barrier to productivity in a workforce, in an insurance company. And that's key number 1, right? And it makes sense whether you're thinking about in your own life with your own partner or better half or marriage or your own business. If everyone's clear on what they're doing, but the bigger you get, the more clear you have to be and more focused in keeping things clear. The next one on empowerment was really, that was the birth of job satisfaction. It was the ability to get things done to completion. Employees that can complete a task are much happier employees than employees that there's never any one thing that they can get done in any given day or week or month. So as much as that sounds simple, it was actually the most costly barrier to growth with complex processes. And as we know in the insurance industry, as we've gotten into AI and data analytics and blockchain tech and UX and UI and everything that we're doing in that space, it's become more and more complex, especially with a lot of the security and cybersecurity issues. And so it was really incumbent that an organization, when it came to empowerment, had a good team design that was focused on outcomes and outputs, and it let the leadership, let the people within an insurance organization use their brain. So instead of telling them exactly what to do, it was more about explaining the problem and letting the workforce solve it. And then lastly was mindset. As we know, in times of massive change, or as we've all gone through the pandemic, AI that's in our future, change is undefeated. The constant is getting uncomfortable, or excuse me, getting comfortable with change. And so that requires a different mindset in your workforce. It kind of goes along that, I think it was Roosevelt, where he said something like, people don't care what you know until they know how much you care. And there was definitely, what we saw in our survey across the US, there was definitely a disparity between what the workforce felt about their leadership as far as the care, their clarity, their empowerment, and their mindset. And lastly, on that mindset, it was acknowledgement, understanding what happened, why it happened, leadership not being afraid to say, we've messed up, or we don't know the answer, or here's the warts in the business. We acknowledge them. No one's perfect. And I need you guys to help us figure this out. That was key. Authenticity of acknowledgement of everything wasn't perfect. And then the power of a growth mindset is kind of a neurological association that when there's change, there's opportunity. It's not a threat. When it gets tough, when there's pressure, it's an opportunity. It's not a threat. Those things are good. Whether we're studying to read, to exercise our brain, whether we're working out in a gym to exercise our muscles, pain thresholds, pressure is, if you can get your workforce to believe that's a good thing, not a bad thing, they come into work with a much better mindset. And then lastly, I think it was standards and rituals, which we found, which was making the implicit explicit. There are so many times in a larger organization or an insurance organization where employees come in, they're told what to do, but there's not quite rules and regulations on exactly what to do with certain criteria or certain rules and regulations. There's a lot of gray area. As much as you got to let them do it, they do need some borders. They do need some lanes, like bowling alley. So that was key as far as behaviors to stay in the zone and do your channel and complete it to its completeness. So, most importantly, I think when you take those three learnings, when you ask Craig, how do you do that? That's how Bastion Transform does it in order to help large brands or large organizations. And frankly, you don't have to be large. I'm talking even 2, 3, 4-person organizations. The Insurance Dudes podcast, you guys go through the same things in communicating with each other. So the most important thing for a productive team was to invest in that mindset, to invest in that clarity, and to invest in that empowerment.